Right, let's look how we produce a summery breezy sky like this with billowing clouds scudding across the landscape. Now I know some artists preach against the use of photographs, but personally I have no problem with them whatsoever. I think they're a wonderful source of reference material, and I'm quite sure if photographs had been round in Constable's day and Turner's day, they'd have used them as a tool of the trade, just as Monet actually did in his later years. So what we have here is a series of large shapes. If you look at the clouds in terms of large abstract shapes and the blue areas as other abstract shapes, then you won't go far wrong, because what you're looking at, or what we're going to do, is to paint these blue areas in to start with, and to leave the white of the clouds almost as what you call negative shapes. Then we're going to add in some of the cloud shadow colour around this and leave, as we've got here in the photograph, these little edges of highlighted white where the sun is catching the top edge of the clouds. And as we get towards the horizon, you can see the clouds get smaller and smaller and lighter in tone. Let's see how we go on. Right, we've put our pencil border around the paper so you can so I know that everything's going to fit onto the screen. And incidentally, if you're wondering why the pencil appears not to be parallel with the bottom and the top of the television screen, it's simply that the angle that the camera is looking over my right shoulder slightly distorts things. But once you can get your head around that, hopefully it's going to give you the best view without my big head getting in the way all the time. Okay, here's the colours I'm going to be using for these skies, and it's similar colours to those that I've used already. I don't want to overcomplicate things for you by chopping and changing with too many different combinations of colours. So we've got ultramarine blue, we've got a mix of light red and ultramarine blue for the shadow colours, and once again we've got raw sienna to add a little bit of warmth in the sky shadows and then to bring down into the rest of the painting. So here goes. Now the mop brush is ideal for this sort of sky, especially as we're going to use what I call a hit and miss effect. In other words, there's going to be some damp areas and there's going to be some dry areas, so you'll get some soft edges as the paint merges and some hard edges where it's on dry paper. And this is ideal, the mop brush, for sloshing paint on in all sorts of different directions. So what I'm first of all going to do is dip this into clean water and just slosh it on here and there just to get us going. But I'm just going to slap on some paint. I'm not worried, certainly not worried about covering every square inch of the paper with water. I haven't a clue, because obviously the water is soaked into the paper, so I really don't know where the water is now. But what I'm going to start doing now, I'm going to pick up some blue and I'm going to paint roughly these sort of shapes. And there's two, as you can see, there's two big blue shapes here and a couple of smaller ones here and there. So we're going to go into the ultramarine blue and we're going to start like that. It's as simple and as straightforward as that. As you can see, where I've already put water, the blue paint is starting to dilute, but we've got a nice hard edge there, so that's fine, and one or two hard edges elsewhere. And then we'll put another dollop of blue paint along here like that, and then there's, oops, that little hair out, and then something else there and a couple of dollops there. Now, as I say, I'm not making any attempt to copy this slavishly, because it'd be quite impossible to do so, but right away we've created our blue areas. Now this is one where you do need to take water off the brush quite frequently, particularly if you're going to lift out colour where it's not wanted, such as there. The next thing I'm going to do is to pick up the cloud shadow colour, remember that bluey grey colour, and I'm going to pick up here and there, just get those little images. Try and imagine you're outside in this breezy day, so your brush strokes almost get caught up in the movement and the noise and the cool and wind and breeze in your face. Right, I'm just going to bring a little bit of raw sienna in now, here and there, into some of those shadows. Don't want to overdo it. At the moment it just looks like a series of abstract shapes, which is really all that clouds are when you think about it. And then as we get further away, a few lighter cloud shadows here and there in the distance. Right, now we're going to take some water off the brush, and I'm just going to slightly, I don't want to overplay this, but just slightly soften off some of these hard edged areas. A little bit of water, just take them out here and there and just drag them down so that the hard edge is quite literally dragged down to nothing. Just softening off here and there. As I say, don't want to overdo it. There, just working to create those, so we're getting that line of clouds almost, just with that little bit of sunlight in. Okay, we're going to stop right now. That looks a fairly abstract series of shapes, and perhaps you're thinking, how on earth is that going to turn out as a cloud? Well, let's see what it finishes up like when it's dry. Well, there we are. There's our finished sky. It's now dry, and I've added a simple landscape just to show it off. The main player in this particular picture is the sky, so you don't want a busy landscape or an over busy landscape that's competing with the sky. Similarly, if you do have a busy landscape, you want to keep your skies quite simple so it doesn't compete. But what I've got here is just using the same colours as in the sky, the light red, the raw sienna and the ultramarine blue. Just again, just dabs of paint on little hints of the house, and raw sienna for the haystack, and some cloud shadows in the fields that not only define the contours of the fields, but it tells you that the clouds are flying across the sky and scudding across the fields as well. Notice in the clouds where I've taken the shadow colour almost up to the blue, but not quite, so we've left sort of broken lines of white highlights. Now, if you're not sure how to produce these simple little landscapes, don't worry, we'll come to that in the appropriate DVDs. We're going to cover trees and buildings and all sorts of other features, so when the time comes we'll look at that in more detail.